Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's great to see so many people turning up to listen and catch up with Davie today. This is our second one that we've done, and hopefully it will give everyone on the call today an insight about where we're going and what we're doing. Saturday, the 5th of November, very important date for us all because there's been a monumental announcement today, and I think it'll shape and shift the way we work and how we deal with the business going forward. And it's ironic that of this days in 1605, Guy Fawkes failed in his revolution. Let's not suffer the same fate, people, shall we? And let's make sure that by telling Openreach how we all feel and what we all do, that we can listen and they will hear our voices collectively, because I think it's important. And with that in mind, we can do no better than Openreach to have our National Officer for Openreach, Mr. Davie Bowman, who will be speaking with us in a couple of minutes. And hopefully he'll give us an update about where we are, what we're doing, and how we're moving forward, and how we see the campaign going. But what I would like to ask, if there's anybody who'd like to ask questions, please feel free to include it in the chat. And what I can do is I can read them out, let him know what's in. Davie can pick them up and we can go from there. And hopefully he'll give us a good insight about where we are. So without further ado, I will say thanks everybody, and I'll hand you over to Davie Bowman. Over to you, sir.
Thanks very much, Steve, and thanks for the invite. And what is a huge day for the CWU and a huge day for our members in BT, Openreach and EE. Launched this morning on a Facebook Live event at 8 o'clock that was attended by President Karen Rose from the BT side, Dave Ward, our General Secretary, and Andy Kerr, the Deputy General Secretary. And a fantastic launch with thousands of people on there this morning, where we have announced the ballot timetable, a consultative ballot timetable, and that will run from the 19th of November until the 10th of December. And it's absolutely crucial that we understand the importance of that consultative ballot, and we understand the requirement for everybody to take part in the ballot and to vote yes. And since the launch this morning, we've had great coverage on Sky, on BBC and various newspapers up and down the country, and the press are taking a massive interest in what it is we're doing. And interestingly, all the company can do is stick out a very short press release that says they're going through a modernisation programme, they are going to need less people, and it's really all about that, which just tells you everything. So I've got three things that I really want to give you an update on, and why it's important from an Openreach perspective. It is important that we fight against compulsory redundancies, because that will ensure your short and long-term job security. We have to stop the race to the bottom on pay and terms and conditions, and fundamentally we have to defend your rights as key workers. You were key workers before, but I think throughout this pandemic it's been absolutely clear the part that you have played in keeping the country connected, and absolutely allowed people to get on with their lives as best they can, by being able to work from home, by being able to maintain broadband connections for all sorts of different reasons. But I suppose the question for you is, why should I vote yes in Openreach? And the simple answer to deal with the first issue is around compulsory redundancies. Because I think what we have to understand is compulsory redundancy is a culture, it's not a process. And the reality of the situation is that once any company gets a taste for turning into something that is hire and fire, then it fundamentally changes the relationship not only between the company and its employees, but the company and its trade unions. And if you look at what the company has done with regard to severance terms, we only reached that agreement 2 years ago that would have allowed people in those circumstances to go out with better severance terms than many, and they've chosen to serve notice on that agreement and are seeking to half what many people would have enjoyed. And I suppose what we've got to look at is, we've dealt with many, many surplus situations in the past, both in the field and in desk. And over the years, we've managed to deal with that through redeployment, through retraining, and fundamentally through reskilling, giving people the skills that they need in order to have a future with the company. And I'll just draw, because sometimes in Openreach, because of the levels of recruitment, it just seems a wee bit strange that we would be talking about that. But look at a recent example. Most people on here, I am sure, have either worked in a frame or work on the frames. And at the back end of last year, we had, what, 300 plus theoretical surplus based on volume reductions within the frames environment. And there was not one element of compulsion. No compulsion. We dealt with that by allowing people to leave the company who chose to do so on voluntary means. And many of the people in that environment hadn't had the opportunity, took the opportunity and left. And for the rest, what we did was we have dealt with it through reskilling and retraining. There was no compulsion. You know, if that has happened now and not then, we don't have any assurances from Openreach around the fact that they won't make anybody compulsory redundant. I'll tell you now, I wrote to the company on the back of the location strategy and asked for a commitment that there would be no compulsory redundancies, and they wouldn't do it. They came back with mealy-mouthed words that said they would try and avoid it, they would work with the CWU, but no commitment that that wouldn't happen. So you have to look at what's going to happen now and in the short-term future. Those of you that might have copper skills, that are told you can't have fibre skills. Why? Because you're too valuable for within that copper environment. And then you look at the huge increase in third party, both from a turnkey point of view for the fibre build, and I'll come on to that, but also now an increase in the use of third party and what will be future roles, FTTP provision. So we have to look at it from a practical point of view. We'll look at Salisbury, look at Bristol, where Salisbury fully fibre, Bristol huge areas of it. What's going to happen there? Well, the company will stop selling copper products, and the company will start forcing customers through various ways onto the fibre products in order to recoup that investment that they have made. And what are they going to do at that point? I'm not saying that that's today, and I'm not saying it's tomorrow, and I'm not saying it's next week. What I'm saying is compulsory redundancy is a culture, not a process. And if we allow the company to get into a mindset that says, well, actually, when we've got a bit of a problem in terms of having too many people, then compulsory redundancies is the answer. Not acceptable to you, not acceptable to the CWU. And the race to the bottom, and this gets back to third party. Openreach has sought funding from, as they call it, the parent BT Group, and have been successful in order to build that fibre network. And they're looking to get somewhere around about a good share of the 5 billion that they talk about that funded via the taxpayer. And from our perspective, that should be about, without any jingoism, that should be about UK jobs to build a UK fibre network. So why have we got the continued and increased use of offshore in order to do that? Why are they driving through a location strategy that means that people right across the country are in a position where they are sitting in a location, carrying out a fantastic job on behalf of the company? Oh, wait a minute, what are they doing? Vast majority of them are now working from home, quite successfully working from home and keeping this country connected. But no, that's not good enough. Openreach have to move towards a location strategy that moves from the 30-odd locations, COVs and retained sites, down to 8. It's not 9, don't believe their spin, it's not 9. There won't be any team members working in headquarters in Judge Street, not a chance. It's 8 locations, and many parts of the country they're completely pulling out of. And their answer to that, because of the thousands of people involved, will undoubtedly be the use of compulsion and compulsory redundancies. I've said they've moved to the turnkey approach for the build, and they're also looking at, as I say, far more third party on business as usual work. And that's where the threat to your terms and conditions begins to come in. Because if they've got a fundamental use, and I'll use one practical example, Ollie, the managing director of service delivery, has certainly been on videos on Workplace making very clear his commitment for the continued and long-term use of third party. And let me make very clear, because this will go elsewhere, we've got members in Kelly's, we've got members in Quinn's, we've got members in other companies. And what we're about here is making sure we drive up terms and conditions and create employment opportunities for people. And that's really, really important, because if what the company does is, as the leader, as the blue chip, as supposed to be in the upper quartile, starts to utilise that, how long is it going to be before what they want to do in order to increase the profit, in order to keep the shareholders happy, attacking your terms and conditions, and trying to employ even stranger terms and conditions in your contracts of employment for new people they may bring in. What I said about defending the rights of key workers, you know, you should be treated with the respect you deserve. You should have the security of employment you deserve, and you should work in a safe environment. I mean, you're keeping the country connected at this point in time. So finally, you know, the vote itself and the consultative ballot, this is really, really important. The General Secretary and Andy Kerr, the DGS, set it out this morning. We are beginning a period of time, and it's the fight of our lives. The company has changed. Their approach to you and the approach to the trade union has changed. We need you to vote, and we need you to vote yes. We need a clear message right across BT, but specifically we need a clear message in Openreach. And one of the real reasons for that is because you're the biggest group of team members. You're the largest group of team members. You're the people at the forefront of everything that's happening about this new technology running out. And a massive yes vote will definitely save jobs. It will definitely save sites, and it will save your livelihood and stop that race to the bottom. Great having so many on the call today. I am absolutely sure you'll take this message away and talk to your colleagues and encourage them to vote. But there's three key things. If we stick together and we fight together, we'll win together. And I'm certainly counted in. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, David. That was absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure everyone on the call would agree. We need to pass that message on. Dave's just nailing it. I've already had some questions that came in, David. Just wondered if I could sort of pick them off. And the first one, and of course, if anyone's got any questions that they wish to ask, they can pop it into the chat box, and I can convey it across to David. And the first one really is the big one I'm getting in the phone calls that we've been making is, why a consultative ballot and not straight to an industrial ballot, if you like, for industrial action? Why consultative first?
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
I think you've kind of answered. I'll give you a couple if you like. And the second one is, why does this affect me as an Openreach engineer? But I think you kind of covered that as well, if I'm honest. But if you could do why the consultative first? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, what we have decided to do is have a consultative ballot, because we are seeking to engage the company to try and resolve these issues. And as has been said before, and on numerous different occasions, what the company sometimes does is it believes that the CWU, in terms of their version of the CWU, which would be myself as an officer, Steve as a branch officer, others who are regional secretaries, so somehow or other we sit about and we think up problems and make the company's life a misery. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are your representatives. The CWU are its members. We are purely individuals who carry out what it is you want to do. So what the reasoning behind a consultative ballot is because what we want to do very clearly is demonstrate to the company on the issues that I've already covered and I won't repeat, that we as the leadership, as the people that interface with the company, have your absolute support in the tack that we are taking. And also on the issues that we want to address, because they are your issues. These things are the things that you have told us are important to you, and things that you understand are a threat to you going forward. So what we want to do is, through the Count Me In campaign, through meetings like these, that are happening throughout the country through a consultative ballot is to build a huge momentum behind that says we as a group of members, BT, Openreach, EE, we as a group of members are not willing to accept the changes, and what we are willing to do is support the union if an industrial action ballot is required. It will send a clear message to the company that you're serious about this fight. So we do that at this stage in order to get them back to the table. Andy made clear this morning on Facebook Live, he wants them back at the table to address these issues. And the way we can do that is by getting a massive turnout and a massive yes and a consultative ballot. Get them back to the table, but be under no illusions. If they won't come back to the table as a result of that huge yes vote, which I am sure we will deliver through your good work, if they won't come back to the table and they won't come back in a meaningful way, then we will, if required, move to that next step. This is not about avoiding that. This is about building towards it.
Thanks, David. I think that covers it. That's excellent. Another one we've got is why are Openreach starting to use contractors more and more, and kind of linked in with the contractors bit as well, if you don't mind, is will there be, as part of what we're doing, and obviously the consultancy ballot, will we be also battling and get a resolution to the PTT campaign?
Yeah, great question. And there's nobody more frustrated with the lack of progress on PTT and removing that 60-minute additional travel for individuals who have it in their contract of employment than me. We've been extremely frustrated at the fact that the company won't address it. Again, they don't believe it's a membership issue. They believe it's a CWU issue. And yes, you know, with a successful campaign under Count Me In, we will change their attitude. We'll change their approach to how they deal with you and they deal with the people that we represent. And yes, we would want to make progress on that issue. I think the answer to the question around contractors is relatively straightforward. And that is, unfortunately, because of the terms and conditions and the methods in which contractors are employed, then fundamentally they are cheaper for the company to employ. And the tactic is definitely to increase the use of third party. It is a direct threat to your terms and conditions. And it says everything, doesn't it? I mean, just to go back to the Managing Director of Service Delivery, he said in his video that he couldn't understand when he came in to Openreach why there was this us and them between direct labour and contractors, because where he had worked before, there was this lovely partnership between the contractors and the direct labour. And look, we wish no individual that works for a contractor any ill. They're workers like us. They're trying to put bread on the table. They are trying to feed their families and keep a roof over their heads. So we've got no truck at all. We've got no problem at all with the individuals that work for the contractors. But then you have to ask yourself, it's not an equal footing, isn't it? So what the Managing Director's saying, yeah, we want to all be part of one big family, but actually some of the family are more equal than the rest of the family. Well, that's not what this trade union is about. What we're about is making sure that terms and conditions for everybody that works in this industry are in the right place. And the best way to do that is to defend the terms and conditions in Openreach and make them better, and encourage the company to reduce its reliance on third party and create opportunities for those people to join the company. That's why they're doing it, and that would be our objective in this campaign.
Thanks, Dave. Again, comprehensive. This one might be a little bit explosive, but I think it's rather apt considering we're on Openreach. And it's do the union oppose the use of COT as much as the company have imposed it over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think
that's topical.
Very topical, and another good question. Yeah, I mean, contractual overtime was something that was introduced a number of years ago as part of an agreement on attendances. There are safeguards associated with its use around a memorandum of understanding that we've got that sets out a very clear staircase on when it should be used and how it should be used. I was asked this question in the Eastern region the other night, so you're absolutely right, it's topical. And the question was related to, will we see more opposition from the CWU? Will we see us challenging the requirement for contractual overtime in the future? And the answer to that is yes, because once again, we reached an agreement in good faith with the company, where recognising that on occasions contractual overtime may be required. In good faith, we reached that agreement. And you have to look at when that agreement was reached, which was a number of years ago, 9, 10 years ago now. And I do accept it was used on occasions throughout that period, but never has it been used as much as it has been recently. And you've got to ask yourself why. And it's maybe because there's an inability by the people currently running the company to actually get the resource levels right, to get the tools that you need right, to get the transformation in terms of the processes you need right, and they have to fall back on something that's in an agreement, in people's contract of employment that they can invoke. So yes, we will be challenging it more vigorously going forward, and I'm absolutely sure we'll have the backing of our members to do that.
Thank you. I've got another couple, and they kind of linked, I suppose. And it starts off with, what happens if my job is in a building that doesn't have a long-term future? But you can kind of caveat that along with, is it true Openreach is sending more and more work offshore? I think the two are sort of inexplicably linked, if I'm honest.
Well, they are. And as I said in my introduction, the location strategy was announced, and they are moving from the 30-odd locations, plus people who homework, plus people who are in various other locations, down to 8. And just a reminder, it wasn't that long ago that we reached the working together agreement. That was painful and difficult. But what it did was actually, they started off with a proposal for 23 sites. We ended up with 32 plus 4 retained sites. But most importantly, what we ended up with was a commitment from the company that where individuals couldn't move to one of the new sites, and there was also the opportunity for people to leave using voluntary leaver payments. If there wasn't the opportunity for people to move to one of the other sites, then the company gave us a commitment that they would bring work to them. Quite clear commitment in the correspondence. When they announced their location strategy, we challenged the company, we wrote to them and said, look, will you give us the commitment that you gave as part of this working together agreement? It's an agreement with the CWU on behalf of its members. Will you give us a commitment that in situations where people can't move to one of the other locations, then you will bring work to them? And the answer was no, a resounding no. The position has changed. They are following the overall BT Group strategy to move from the over 300 locations to 30 locations. Out of that 30 locations, Openreach have chosen 8. And as a result of that, then no, they wouldn't give us those commitments. Now, 2 or 3 things happening associated with us at this point in time. The first is that yes, work is going offshore. There continues to be work offshore. Another key part of the pension agreement that we reached that had reference to redundancy was that in situations where redundancy was a possibility, then they would bring work back from offshore. We have no commitment from them now that they would commit to that. We've got agreements specifically within Openreach on that. So if you're currently sitting in a building where you're not part of that location strategy, then yes, fundamentally you are under threat, and fundamentally is the CWU going to do everything they can in order to protect you as this goes forward. And certainly as part of the Count Me In fight, then we have to make that clear to the company. One other thing to say though, Steve, which I think is also something that is beginning to bubble up, and certainly is bubbled up in the Northwest where you are at the moment, and that is that they have started moving work from the non-strategic sites to the strategic sites, and have began to employ other individuals from externally. Again, it's not their fight and it's not their problem, but externally bring people in and transferring that work. And they've been asking our members to get involved in process writing and writing training documentation in order for that work to be transferred, leaving them with nothing. We've made clear to the company that's unacceptable. The company have set out to us the manner in which that should be happening, that there should not be writing training documentation, should not be writing process documentation, and it's important that message gets out. And if anybody is asked to take part in that activity in order to effectively lose their job, then they need to talk to their local branch as soon as possible and get that flagged to head office, and we will seek to deal with it. So the location strategy directly linked to work offshore, yes, and I go back to the fundamental point. This company is seeking £5 billion from this government at a time where thousands of people are losing their jobs as a result of COVID and various other things, and they want to use that money to maintain and create jobs offshore. Totally unacceptable.
Thanks, Dave. I know we're sort of getting on, and we said it'd be half an hour, but we did start a little bit late, so hopefully I can keep you for another couple of minutes. I've just one's just dropped in. It says, "Are Openreach targeting higher grade roles and trying to devalue our jobs and grades?"
Yes, we have been. You'll all. I'll use the best example probably for this environment, and that would be the poll tester role. The company decided, without the agreement of the CWU, that what they would do is regrade and employ externally and internally people into the poll tester role. For years, that role has been at C1. If you go back long enough, folk like myself, you go back to the T1 grade that was there, and that grade was there because of the responsibility associated with poll testing and associated with the safety of all our members whilst carrying out that activity. The company carried out an unagreed assessment. We assessed it. We assessed it at what it was. They carried out an assessment, and what they've done is imposed a lower grade for that work. Again, we've had people come in from outside the company, not their fault, not their issue. This is a wider issue. We're not blaming them for it, but totally unacceptable. If we look at field-based corps role was originally agreed at C3. It's been advertised at TMNE3, and that's what paying people 34 grand as opposed to the 39 for a C3. So yes, absolutely, they're attacking the higher graded work and seeking to water that down in terms of the terms and conditions. And of course, you also have to look at everything that gets advertised these days. It's not a pay range, so it's not you go onto the pay range, you go through the increments, and you're guaranteed to get to the top. It's a pay rate with a 10% associated bonus. And two fundamental things about that change of approach, even if the numbers add up to nearly something that's the same. And the reality of that is that your pension payments are based on the salary, and the overtime that you earn when you do have to work overtime voluntarily is also paid at that lower rate. So yeah, the company, it's a race to the bottom. It's about reducing those terms and conditions, and they have been hard fought for and hard won by the CWU and its members over the years by managing to get reasonable, good pay rates over those years. So yes, Steve, good questions again, and absolutely it's happening, and it's happening every day. I think now we're up to 16 or 18 unagreed roles with unagreed pay points, and it is something certainly my boss Andy Kerr, the Deputy General Secretary, has an absolute focus on, because it's not just happening in Openreach, it's happening in technology, it's happening in consumer, it's happening in enterprise, it's happening across the piece, and it's fundamentally an issue that's part of the Count Me In campaign. So raising it on an Openreach call, fantastic.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry, I don't know if my laptop's just gone off. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, it just suddenly went that. That kind of covers where we're up to. They were sort of the last question that came in. So I think that'll be sort of about the right time to call it. What I will say is to So 43 people who've tuned in today, a massive thank you from myself, and I'm sure from Davie. I hope you don't mind me speaking for him. A massive thank you to everyone that's come on and taken the time to sit and listen. And it's important. I think we just need to go away from here. I'm going to deputise the 43 people who've come on this call today. I'm going to turn you all into workplace reps for the next several weeks to pass that message out, to pass this message on from your national officer. You know, he's come on today to tell you the struggles that we face as branch officers. But he's spot on, by the way. You need to remember, I'm not the union. Davie isn't the union. You are the union. The 40 odd people that have come on here today are the union. And we need to get that message out that the stronger we are, the louder you all will be. I promise you. So we ask you to support the campaign going forward. When your ballot drops into your inbox on the 19th, get that yes vote back, get that yes, and make it massive. Make this business listen to our people on the shop floor. You're the key workers. You are keeping this country connected. You should be proud of what you do. Let's make sure that the business and the bosses know that too. Thanks everybody for attending, and I hope you found it informative. Thank you.